Silent Night. Written, narrated and illustrated by Jacob Saul. Scored by Billy McCormack. There's an eerie silence to every house at night. Everyone's still home, yet somewhere else. Vacant. I normally come in late, as not only do I not want to cause a disturbance, the buses have always packed up by the time I've finished work. I remember as a kid thinking midnight seemed like an ungodly hour, and why on earth would anyone need to be up later than 9 p.m? But naturally, as you get older, the dead of night gets pushed back and back and back, until it finds a happy medium right as the sun rises. Not quite sure why I'd always stay up so late. Always been a bit of a night owl. I even asked for the later shift at work. After silently clicking the front door shut, it felt like I'd muted the world around me, as silent as the whispers of the dead. The ceiling was lost to the dark. I couldn't quite make out its definition. It almost made the lampshade feel like it was floating in thin air, with no real tether to the architecture. Right in front of the door are the stairs leading to the big expanse of the first floor, or alternatively you could turn right, to the kitchen and the lounge. I was thirsty but had no real business on the ground floor. I was tired and didn't want to wake the dog. So after plucking my shoes off, like petals from a flower, I headed upstairs. It seemed like each step on the staircase was as fine-tuned as a piano. I couldn't quite tell if it was rising in pitch with each step, but my ears certainly deceived as such. Each creak of the floorboards felt avoidable, but with any attempt to make them stop being squandered by their need to scream. My feet stepped on, well, not even eggshells, but baby chicks, so faint it wouldn't even crush their skulls. Think of how jagged the edges would be on your toes. By at least the 8th step, I learned a cockiness not too misplaced until, ow! With the pain of 1,000 Roman blades all concentrated into one square centimetre brick. Fucking Lego. Always the Lego. Leaking out a cry of pain that wouldn't be out of place if found on a little girl or dog, I deeply inhale as if it would retract the noise. I hold for a moment, motionless, to check the damage. The silence was so loud it was piercing my ears, just as the plastic was to my foot. The coast seemed clear. Oh, the bollocking I'd get if anyone woke up. The smile of reassurance radiated from my face and almost lit the way forward. In front of me was a crossroads of sorts, but before I could weigh up my options, I heard it. In a single moment, my mind almost left my body and instantly threw itself in hundreds of directions to find the source of the noise, before hearing the second part. The crying. Oh, not the crying. I darted towards the baby's room, hopping along all the memorised safe and silent patches of the floor, until finally reaching it. The door was propped open, like it always was, and the decorations of rubber ducks plagued the walls. How hideous. You can see it from the outside with the large, almost industrial windows. Even passers-by see it and presumably vomit. I know I do every time I go past. As I push in through the doorway and towards the little girl, it feels like I'm Indiana Jones coming up to the treasure. She's such a sweet little thing. I loved her, but admittedly, I was scared of her mother, especially given the time of night. Scooping her up like a cat's litter tray, I rock her head back and forth. She starts to quiet down, but the gasps and odd noises still remain a constant, in short, sharp intervals. I made sure to support her head with one hand, just like WikiHow said. I'll drop the link in the description. It was a thought that crossed my mind. I first pondered why, but then found my answer in the flashbacks of those bloody vlogs that I watch. The little baby Beth had started to calm down, her head fitting neatly into my palm. I could never get over the thought of at this age everything is still her first. Her beady eyes dart around the room, occasionally landing on mine. I wonder how much awareness she has. I wish we spent more time together, just the two of us, but the duty of work pulls me away. The movement of her wriggling arms almost resembles her doing backstroke. It'll be some years before she can swim by herself. I'll be there to help her along. It flashes into my mind like a montage, seeing her on her first day at school, learning to ride a bike, all the landmarks that at the time felt like natural progression, but you can look back on with such fondness. She had all that yet to come. Her arm stopped, leaving it pointing upwards, and a huge grin crossing her face, partnered with the most adorable little chuckle. I pull her in close for a cuddle. being careful not to hurt her. She's still fragile, vulnerable to the big bad world. Don't worry, I whispered under my breath. That's why I'm here. Holding her like this felt like when you give an egg to a Labrador. Her eyes peered out beyond my shoulder, and she looked up at the tacky plastic glowing stars. It took me back a moment. It was like when you walked down the high street and one day stopped to look at the buildings above the storefronts. Flats and lives lived entirely above where you perceive the everyday. These were her first stars. Her lips dryly smacked together, indicating her thirst, I pondered, wandering towards the mini-fridge in the corner of the room, which was stocked up for exactly moments like this. I always thought her mother was silly pumping it like that. It should always be in earshot to her, but in this moment I appreciated her for the genius she was. After placing the beautiful Beth back into her cot, I continued to pursue the fridge. As it opened, it almost blinded the both of us. Wish I'd brought sunglasses now. Oh, just pictured her in sunglasses. Adorable. As I picked up the breast milk from the fridge, I couldn't remember if she'd have it hot or cold. The microwave led me to draw my own conclusion. Seeing it spin around for nearly a minute on that plate, it looked like it was up for sale on one of those telly adverts. Buy one, get one free with this special offer. Little Beth's eyes were transfixed on the rotating milk like it was the only thing in the world. After pouring it into a bottle, I checked it for temperature. Having the cap between my lips, I squeeze. Oh, not bad, love. No wonder she was obsessed. I peer over to a large frown consuming Beth's entire face. Oh, if looks could kill. Proceeding as normal, she seemed to think it was the right temperature, as it was being gulped down. Meandering towards the window, our reflections came into view. And who's that beautiful little girl right there? I mouthed to her. She doesn't respond. Fair enough. And who's he? That's right, that's Daddy. I continue mouthing as if speaking to the deaf. Being brutally honest, I was getting a little jealous she was having it all to herself. There was only one sip left, so I thought, what was the harm? Snatched, gulped, gone. As if each word had its own sentence, I recognised the voice behind me. Who the fuck are you? Thuds in my chest could be felt on the Richter scale. I turn around slowly, Beth and the bottle in either hand. Put down my baby, the voice continues. I've been rumbled. Hey, I'll put her down, I'll put her down. I realise I'm in no position to bargain. Beth smiles and almost appears to clap at the sight of her mum. She stands in the doorway, visibly shaking in a thin grey dressing gown with exposed legs. She's just as stunning as the pictures. Even in the flesh, she only looks like the videos come to life. Not quite real. She holds her phone out like a knife. It offers the same threat as one. Please, give me my baby. I start to hand her the sweet little girl, so oblivious to the current events. As she nearly reaches her hands, she seeps out a cry for help. Mark! Mark! Big mistake. Now that's just bad etiquette. I snatch the baby back. I'm sorry, please, just give her back and leave. Following deep footsteps, a well-built man stands in the doorway accompanying the mother. They almost look like a band. His muscular frame sure trumped my wiry build. Bollocks. He outstretched his hand towards Beth and I took a step back. He moved slowly, one pace at a time, like a king in chess. Before I knew it, the narrow, shallow room had ended with my back up against the industrial window. What other options did I have left? The father remained mute. It was admirable. Knowing words couldn't resolve this. The bottle crashed to the floor as my grip released. In an attempt to be subtle, my hand crept behind my neck and started to undo the latch on the window. The gap between us was edging smaller. I angled myself away from him. Ping! The window latch was anything but quiet. It flew upwards, almost shattering the glass, and the breeze dramatically blew his hair. Wow, he really did look like a movie star. I could feel the sharp windowsill digging into me as I pushed back further. Poor little Beth started to cry. Look at the distress they'd caused her. We'll be waking up the whole street at this rate. The mother was hysterical, still by the door, crying so hard at points no noise even came out, before inhaling half the air in the room. It dug sharply into my shoulder, and just by natural reaction I adjusted my grip. Come on now, was said. but I couldn't tell if it was one of their voices or mine. My heart wasn't just skipping beats, but entire verses. Where can I go from here? Nowhere but down. Tears started to fill the eyes of the dad. It was just as beautiful and poetic as you'd have hoped. He always had a quip and a joke in those videos, but now he was silent. Who was I to interfere with his family? They didn't even recognise me. The window frame digging deeper into my skin than a grave made me yell involuntarily. The mother seemed to mimic that as she looked like she was going into labour on the floor. Not that she was pregnant, of course. Just that much sweat and hyperventilation makes anyone look like that. The dog downstairs started to yell along with her, and at this point I was almost hanging out of the window. Goodness knows what was preventing me from falling. And with that, as if in a flash, the baby was out of my arms. Even I wasn't sure as to where. Everything seemed to move slowly as my eyes worked their way towards where she had been. Both of my hands empty, the window open. I blink my eyes to wipe away the tears, and it feels like it lasts an eternity. Beth is still screaming, almost harmonizing with her mother. Looking down, I see her in the arms of her father. He passes her back like a rugby ball at the start of a match. Each blink almost acts as a slideshow for the current events. The father heroically saving their baby, then pinning me to the floor. Oh, here's a firm grip. As I become one with the carpet and have my ear blown off from the shouting, I smile. Damn, that milk has an aftertaste. Silent Night. Written, narrated and illustrated by Jacob Saul. Scored by Billy McCormack.